In this video, we're going to create a through-hole pad. This is a typical through-hole pad. This is also through-hole pad. Now this is not populated yet, and this is populated with a resistor. We see that it has a hole. It has a copper pad, and the copper pad is plated to make it more solderable. The solder is going to adhere much better to the zinc part of it than it would to a plain copper. The solder max is just a little bigger than the pad itself, and it prevents any solder wicking from one pad to another or a pad to a trace. To start our padstack editor, we go to our Start menu, All Programs, and then we search for Cadence. Now, Cadence Utilities is what we want, and we want Cadence Utilities 17.4 for this lesson. And then we look for Padstack Editor, click on that, and our Padstack Editor opens up. And we can see we can create many different pad stacks. The ones that we're going to be interested in is the through pin. Also, SMD is a very common one, which is a surface mount. It's just a piece of copper that the component gets soldered to. To start a new pad stack, we go to File, New, and it's going to be asking you for a name. It will be a 60C38D. The 60 is the actual pad, which is this part here. The 38D is the 38 mil diameter of the hole. And the pad stack usage is through pin, which is correct, and we're going to say OK. Also, in this lesson, we have a directory. This directory will be changing, depends on where you want the symbol to be stored. And say OK. So in the begin layer, we're going to put a 60, the thermal pad will be 80, and the anti-pad will be 80. So we're going to put 80 here, 60. And that'll give you a begin layer of 60. And then the thermal pad, we make a circle, and the diameter on that will be 80. The anti-pad, again, will be a circle, and that will also be an 80. So now we have regular pad, thermal pad, and anti-pad. Thermal pad and anti-pad is always 20. Well, in this case, for this company, because every company is a little different, is going to be 20 over the regular pad. And we'll get back, we'll dwell on that a little more in later lessons. So now if I press my left button and I bring it over to the right and let it go, I'm going to right click and copy. Then I'm going to left click here, go all the way to here and down, and then I'm going to say paste. Now what that did was copy all of this down to this area here, and the only other change we have to do is in the default internal thermal pad. And now we have to change the thermal pad on the default internal layer. And we want to change the circle to flash. And the flash symbol is going to be called a TR8060. So we type in TR_80_60, and we click our button. And we see that we don't have any TR8060s in our library, so we have to create a new flash symbol. And we say OK. So this user interface pops up, and we want to go into Setup, Design Parameters, click on Design. We see that we have mils. The size, we're going to make it as small as we can, so we wanted an A size drawing. Accuracy is 1. That's fine. Long name doesn't matter. I usually use a -2000 and a -2000. And what that does is it brings the corner of the drawing down 2 inches into the left 2 inches. And remember, this is in mils, so 2000 equals 2 inches. And of course the type is flash, auto create place bound, that's fine. And we just say OK. And if you notice, our point is right here. And if we want to zoom in a little bit, we can. And I'm just using my roller, middle roller button to zoom in. Now this symbol is only the point of our 0, 0 point. So now we just go to Add Flash, Add and Flash. And we have a user interface here. Inner diameter, and that will be 60, and the outer diameter will be 80. And the spoke width should be 15. And the number of spokes is 4. I want a spoke angle of 45 degrees. That's fine. And we just say OK. And there's our thermal relief. If we zoom in a little more, go up a little bit, we see that the inner diameter is 60 and the outer is 80 and the spokes are 15. And of course, as you know, this is because we do not want this to act as a heat sink. In other words, this is all going to be copper, and the pad goes through this big hunk of copper. If you don't have this, these protection, the copper will soak up all the heat that goes into this pad, and the pad will not solder properly. So thermal reliefs are very important. And then you go File, Save. And we see that we have saved tr8060.dra and the symbol tr8060fsm. The FSM symbol is what we actually use in the design, which is a binary file. The DRA is just if you want to make any manipulations to the symbol, and then it gets converted to the binary file, which is an FSM. So now we go File, Exit. And we're back to our pad stack. Notice that we now have a TR8060 FSM, and that's the one we're going to be using. And we say OK. So we now have our default internal layer thermal pad on the default internal layer. Flash is a TR8060. So our job here is done. So now we want to go to our mask layers, make sure we get our solder mask layers put in properly. So we go Mask Layers. So we know that we want to make this solder mask top 10 mils over. So our pad is 60, so this will be a 70. So we click on that, we make sure it's a circle, and the diameter is going to be 70. And enter. So now we have that. Now if we want to do a little bit of a shortcut, we can click it, right click, copy, click, left click, and right click, paste, and that takes care of that. And on a through-hole part, we don't have to fill in any of this. So now if we want to check everything that we've inputted, the next thing we want to put in is the drill. And as you know, the drill we want is a 38. And the hole type is a circle. The flash diameter we put in 38. And we could put a tolerance of plus or minus 3. And the hole is a plated hole. It's going to be plated with zinc from the pads all the way through the board. And rows is 1 and columns are 1. That's just standard. And that's it. Now if we look at our pad stack, we see that this will be the pad itself. This will be the hole. This gives you a side view of the hole going through the board. This will be the bottom layer. That will be the top layer. And this is a representation of every inner layer. Now remember, most boards are especially the very high-speed impedance match boards, you might have 24 layers. It's not unusual. So this will represent every one of those 24 layers. And the next thing we might want to do is take a look at the summary. Now the summary, it's all data that's in it. And if we look at our pads, we see that our 60 is the regular pads, the thermal is 80s, and the anti-pads is 80s. And then on the internal layers, which are right here, we see that we do have our flash, and the flash is a TR8060, which is correct. So it looks like we did our job pretty well, and we just save that, and we're done. So now we say a file save. File and save. And oh, we got our little warning. So let's put in a symbol. So let's open up our drill symbol. And the characters, we say the type of drill figure is none. The character, let's just put in a capital A. And we'll make this a 60 and a 60. 60 and 60. Okay, that being done. Okay, so I think we got it all. Let's put the summary again. And this is what we missed before. I see the drill symbol data, and the character is A. So now we're all done. Let's try to save it again. File. Save. So now that we're all done, we can save it. We can go into File, and then we say Save, Save As, 60C, 38D, and save it. And yes, because we had already created it at one point, and we want to overwrite it to this correct symbol. So now that we have that all done, anytime you use a round pad, you're always going to use a square pad. Since we have everything done with the drills and the drill symbols and all of this other design stuff, it's very easy to just take all that data and make a square pad, and this is how we do it. Let's go to the beginning layer, for instance, and instead of a circle, we want a square. So we put a square. That's done. We know it's exactly 60 mils. That's fine. And if we copy that, that was a right click, and I'm going to left click and a right click and a paste. And so now we have our square pads. So this is all done. The thermal pad is circle, the anti-pad is circle. That never changes. So we've got a square pad on the top, square pad on the bottom. We also have to change our mask layers. Remember, the solder mask top and the solder mask bottom was circle, but now it's got to be a square. So we come to here, we click this little down arrow, go to square. That takes care of that. And if we want to left click, right click, copy, left click, right click, paste, you're done. And that takes care of that. Again, now we want to file save this as something different. because instead of a 60C 38D, this will be a 60S 38D for square. So now we say save. And let's take a look at our summary. We see it says 60S 38D. And we have square here, and which is fine. And the internal layers is going to be, doesn't matter, it is round because we don't have to have it. It's only on the outbound layers that we have to have the square. So that takes care of that. Oh, and also the end layer, of course, is square. And if we go down a little more, we see that the mask layer pads are square as well. So our job here is done. And we do a file, save as, and 60S38D. And I think we already saved it once. We'll save it again. And sure, go right ahead. And we're done with that. So now we've created our round pad and square pad, and that's the end of this lesson.